Welcome to CBT News with Bridget Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to CBT News. I'm Bridget Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for joining us today. Here's Chris Riggans with today's top stories.
Thanks, Bridget. Hyundai Motor America and sister brand Kia reported total July sales of 128,283 units, a decrease of almost 11% compared with July 2021. Sales of only 4 Hyundai models, the Accent, Santa Cruz, Tucson, and Veloster, increased in deliveries. Only the crossovers Sorento and Sportage saw gains at Kia. The volume of EV sales overall was low but steadily growing for both companies. Kia saw an 86% increase in EV sales for July, while Hyundai EV sales increased 12%. The U.S. division of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles pleaded guilty to criminal conspiracy earlier this year in connection to a multi-year U.S. Justice Department diesel emissions fraud probe. Now the automaker has to pay $300 million as a result, but FCA is not the only manufacturer under fire for this issue. Hino Motors, a large affiliate of Toyota, is now under fire for emissions fraud, according to a company-commissioned investigation. The investigation claims Hino fabricated emissions data on some engines going back to at least 2003, more than a decade earlier than previously disclosed. According to Rivian Automotive, the EV maker will not benefit as much from the proposed federal legislation incentivizing consumers to purchase EVs and trucks as its competitors will. In a statement to Automotive News, James Chin, Vice President of Public Policy at Rivian, claimed, quote, "Nearly all of our vehicles would be ineligible for incentives. The $7,500 federal incentive only covers EVs that cost $80,000 or less, including related cost, which is Rivian's issue. Additionally, the annual income of a buyer may not exceed $150,000 or twice that for a couple." General Motors has taken action to prevent rampant resale of its new high-demand, low-production cars by rewarding owners of C8 generation Z06 Corvettes with a $5,000 incentive if they keep them for a full year. In a two-step strategy to stop resellers, a letter was issued to dealerships limiting the transfer of warranties during the first 12 months of ownership and prohibiting the seller from making future reservations on specific high-demand models. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next is expert automotive analyst Kevin Tynan. We'll be right back.
This is CBT News, the voice of the retail automotive industry. Subscribe today.
We're in the heart of earnings season, so today on Inside Automotive, we're joined once again by Kevin Tynan, Bloomberg Intelligence's senior automotive analyst, to give us an update on the automotive retail market. Check it out.
Let's unpack what you've seen here in the last 30 days in automotive. It continues to be more of the same, right? Less inventory, higher gross profits for dealers. Manufacturers are giving the reason that there's just not enough chips yet, and we can't get the inventory back. I know you've got some feelings on that as well. But so from your perspective, what are some of the winners and losers out there? I know we're also going into soon here. We're going into earnings season, so maybe we can touch on that as well. But what say you?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of the metrics that I look at that kind of jump out at me as we finished the second quarter. One of them was production, right? And we talk about inventory all the time, and how low that's been, and then the chip shortage and when does production come back. But actually second quarter production was about 16% higher year over year. Now, again, that's off a very low base from where we were last year, but it seems to be moving in that direction of loosening up a little bit, but certainly not again. And we've talked about this at length. Like, I still don't see there to be a rush of, if that number could be double, that automakers would be running to do double the production that they did last year.
Right.
I think, it's really a structural change to where this pricing dynamic and this profit dynamic is unprecedented. And I think it's an industry where there's so much transparency around inventory and pricing and haggling. And
right.
what incentives are and discounting is, that I think that maybe we kind of get to a place where look, the consumer will have that, they'll have that transparency, but they won't have that ability in terms of beating up retailers for their number, that we sort of settle into what other large purchases or consumer discretionary purchases are like. And that's kind of like, that's the units they have. Or I configure what I want and I wait for it and I pay the price and I get the product and we all move on.
Right.
So I feel like that's a little bit. The other one that jumps out at me a lot is leasing. And not so much because leasing, which in my mind is really another form of incentive. So you can understand with low inventory levels why that has gone away. But where we would see brands, Mercedes and BMW, be at 55% lease penetration, now in the 20s. And why I find that important, Jim, is not so much for that reason specifically. Like, the story's not in that data. The story is, what does that mean for the pre-owned market going forward?
All right, be sure to watch this entire interview right here at cbtnews.com. That wraps up our show for today, but we invite you to join us back here again tomorrow morning for all the latest news and trends impacting the retail automotive industry. And be sure to follow us on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Bridget Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.
Thanks for watching CBT News, the voice of the retail automotive industry. This is CBT News, the voice of the retail automotive industry. Subscribe today.